Right, guys, thanks a lot for coming on time and joining me on this webinar. And so in the previous session, we discussed about the marketing environments. Now we are going to discuss about the strategic marketing. You will recall that in the first session, we discussed about customer-driven marketing strategy. Look, by the way, the session is recorded, so if you want to mute your video, go for it, okay? Now, you may also recall that in the first session, we discussed about customer-driven marketing strategy, okay? In real life, it is very likely if you work in the in marketing department, very likely you adopt customer-driven marketing strategy, okay? Which is a strategy that focuses on two critical decisions. The first one is making decision about the customers, and the second one is making decision about how we can serve these customers best. Okay. Now today in this session we are going to expand our preliminary discussion about customer-driven marketing strategy. Okay. So the first two questions that we need to decide are basically the customers, right? This guy here is the customers, and the next one is about the value proposition. How can we service the customers best? Okay. Now the decision about the customers basically includes these two concepts: the segmentation and targeting. Okay, and decision about the value proposition actually leads to positioning. Okay. And before we do that, we also need to look at the differentiation variables. Okay, now everything in here is aimed at creating value for the customers, right? Now, the other thing I'd like to highlight to you is please, whatever you want to do in the future in your career, okay, either in marketing, in sales, in supply chain or finance, whatever, okay, make sure you understand the process of positioning and the positioning of your organization, because that helps you a lot, okay, to contribute to the organization, all right, because this is actually the core strategy of marketing, or I think it is pretty safe for me to say that it is the core strategy of a business, okay? Yes, the marketing department, the marketers in your organization may start the process, but they need to engage with the other department as well to formulate the right positioning, okay? And we deliver that as an organization, we deliver that together, okay? All right. Now let's have a look at this one. Okay. Okay. First, segmentation. This is what we mean by segmentation. It is actually the process of dividing a large population, the smaller market segment, into smaller market segments. Okay. Now, if you look at, let's say we have, Australian people here, around 24 million people. Okay. Not everyone would be a potential customer. Okay, therefore, we need to look at which ones are potentially becoming our customers. Okay, therefore, we divide them the smaller market segments. Okay, we divide them in the smaller groups. Okay, so that's what we mean by segmentation, actually. Okay, so the process of dividing a large population into smaller market segment. Now, that smaller market segments. There are two things I'd like to highlight about the smaller market segments that we just talked about. Within the same market segment, let's say this is segment A, segment B, and so on and so forth, okay, within the same market segments, we expect they share similar characteristics, okay? The profile, needs, wants, and so on and so forth, okay? But if we compare that to the other market segments, they should not be the same, okay? They should be different. Otherwise, there is no reason why we call them as we put them into two different market segments, okay? So there are the two characteristics I'd like to highlight in terms of market segments, okay? And I would also like to highlight that in terms of segmentation, there are many approaches that we can use, okay? In here, we are going to look at two approaches for consumer segmentation and briefly about business-to-business segmentation. And on that note, I would recommend you to, for your assessments, I would recommend you to review consumer market segmentation instead of business market segmentation, which is more manageable rather than business market. Okay, we'll be learning about business market as well, but for your assessments, highly recommended you focus on the consumer market. Okay, so there are many ways to segment our consumers. Okay, like, you know, how we segment our these animals, these groups of animals. Yes, we also have a number of approaches to segment these animals. Okay, based on number of legs, based on what they eat, based on where they live, based on their friendliness to people, and so on and so forth. Okay, the same thing to our customers, to our consumer. Okay, we can segment them in several ways as well. Now, this is the first approach that I'd like to introduce to you. And I believe I'm going to talk about the other one later. This is the one I'd like to recommend you to use for your assessments. Okay, this is the foundation to the other segmentation process actually. Okay, understanding this for us to that helps us to understand the other segmentation approaches. Okay, so there are 4 segmentation variables. Now, please use the for all of them, right? No discount because we are not Woolworths or Coles. Okay. Geographic segmentation is actually the process of dividing a large population in a smaller market segment based on geographical units. Okay, what do we mean by geographical units? Well, it could be nations, regions, states, counties, cities, or even neighborhoods. Okay, so when you say your target market is basically those who live in the key cities in Australia, okay, like Sydney, Melbourne, okay, Adelaide, Brisbane, for instance. Okay, you are actually dividing the customers, your consumers, based on geographic variable. Okay, and the other one is the next one is demographic segmentation. Now, this one here based on demographic variables. Okay, now if you look at that, you may recall that we discussed demographic environmental forces. Okay, please differentiate demographic environmental forces and demographic segmentation. Okay, when you analyze demographic segmentation, I'm not expecting you to tell me the Australian Bureau of Statistics data. Okay, because these two, your demographic segmentation variable and the Australian Bureau of Statistics, the population data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics may be 2 different things. Okay, what I'm trying to say is the population that the ABS reveals may not reflect who your target market is. Okay, in other words, demographic segmentation variable, like the other variable of segmentation, is basically a group of people that you expect to be your customers, which may not be exactly the same as the population profile in that market. Okay, although they should share at least a bit of similarities. Okay, all right. We look at the age, gender, family size in the case of demographic segmentation. And the next one is psychographic segmentation, which is basically about social class, lifestyle, personality of the target group. Okay, so when you say, if you go back to demographic, when you say your target market is actually those who are at the age of 25 to 35, for instance, this is age, so you're using demographic segmentation variable. Okay, or when you say you are actually looking at middle to upper income earner, okay, then you are actually using demographic segmentation variable. Okay, or highly educated people. Okay, highly educated people, for instance, then you're actually using demographic segmentation variable. Now, demographic segmentation variable is quite popular. Okay, a lot of people use it to determine their target market. Okay, the problem with that is, remember what we want when we analyze our customers. What we want to understand is their need, because that helps us to design our marketing strategy. Okay, now the issue is not everyone in the same age group, let's say 25 to 35, have the same needs. Okay, so not everyone has the same needs. Okay, that's one of the issues that that people also experience in terms of using demographic segmentation variable. Okay, The next one is psychographic, as discussed before. It's lifestyle or personality characteristics or social class. So when you say your target market is those who are, from a middle to upper social class, or having outgoing personality, for instance, or having lifestyle of going to the pub every week, for instance. Okay, so you're using psychographic segmentation. And the last one is behavioral segmentation, which is basically referring to the consumer knowledge, attitudes, right, or uses or responses to a product. Okay, so when you segment the market based on whether you are aiming at users, the current users, or non-users, right, you are actually using behavioral segmentation. Okay, if you say that you're aiming at those who are loyal, or the loyalists, okay, like the guys at Apple, for instance, they when they launch new product, they start with the loyalists. They send out the emails through their iCloud system to Apple customers. Hey, look, guys, we just launched this. Okay, that's loyalists. Or we can also group the customers based on whether they're heavy users or light users. Okay, or new users. Okay. Now, that gives us some ideas in terms of designing our campaign, designing our approach, designing our strategy, okay? If you aim at current users, you may not need to talk a lot about your benefits because they are clear, they have a clear idea in terms of your product, your benefits, the benefit of your product, okay? But if you aim at non-users, then you need to tell a lot about, the benefit of the product, how your product can create value, and so on and so forth, okay? And again, if you aim at heavy users, right, you just need to get them to keep using it. What about light users? Well, your intention may be around converting these light users to be heavy users. Okay, so that determines our different strategy. Okay, right. As mentioned before, each variable actually helps us understanding every single piece of the customers, of our consumers. All right. Therefore, please use all four of them. Okay. Do not discount it. Okay. Please use these four segmentation variables. Okay. Okay. So we've done the segmentation. Okay. What would be the outcome? The outcome would be the outcome would be market segments. Okay. After we divide 24 million people in Australia into smaller market segments, then we get market segments. Okay. Now, the other approach in terms of market segment is Roy Morgan value segments, right? And I'm not going to discuss this in more detail. And I think I put a link to Strategic Business Insights value segment from Strategic Business Insight, SBI. Have a look at it. If you have got a chance, fill out the questionnaire to have a bit of a taste in terms of how they do the survey to understand the value segments. Okay, right. Now, what do we do with these value segments? Okay, look. If you use 4 segmentation variables, that's fantastic. And if you add that with the Roy Morgan value segments, okay, you nominate 1 or maximum 2 of the Roy Morgan value segments, and you show the connection between your Roy Morgan value segments and 4 segmentation variables, it's perfect. Okay. All right. These are the first 5 values of Roy Morgan, starting from the basic needs right through the feasible achievements. And the next one includes young optimism and a fairer deal. Okay, so that represents their own value actually, which is related to the psychographic variable, okay, and behavioral variable, okay. All right, just briefly about the effective segmentation. There's an acronym in here, MASDA, measurable, accessible, substantial, differentiable, and actionable. Okay, well, the key point I'd like to highlight in here is basically not all variables that we use can determine the characteristics of the customers very strongly. Okay, so for instance, in the case of bottled water, for instance, if we use demographic segmentation variable, in this instance, gender, for instance, male, female, well, it may not differentiate the customers because both male and female need water. Okay, so it's not a good variable for us to use to determine that. All right. However, in some instances, okay, it may be good. A variable to help us differentiating our customers. Okay, remember, the key point of using the segmentation variable is it should help us differentiating the customers. At the same time, it should also help us understanding the characteristics within the same market segments. Okay, but in the case of Blink H2O that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, last week, we actually find that they are skewed into female target market. So that is a good differentiator. Right, they aim at that. Okay, so what I'm trying to say is basically look at each variable, whether it is a good differentiator or not. It is a good variable for you to use or not to determine a target market. Okay. All right, this is segmentation for business markets. If you look at that, there are different variables in for us to use in business markets. Okay, so we need to look at the operating characteristics, for instance. Okay, whether they are multinational company or local company, whether they have whether they are just starting, they just start the business in Australia, or they are in growth stage, and so on and so forth. Okay, purchasing approaches, whether it is centralized or whether it is you need to talk to the head office, or whether you can talk directly to the local office in here. Okay, situational factors such as launching new product, for instance, or whether they are under competitive pressure, that will determine a different approach. Okay. The personal characteristics of the decision maker, whether they are risk taker or not, whether they are ambitious or not, or whether they are conservative or not. Okay, and the other one is the other variables that we can use, such as geographic and company size. Okay, where are they located? Now, in the consumer behavior topic next week, we are going to discuss that basically the variable business customers are normally concentrated in the eastern coast in Australia. Okay, and the size of the company is another consideration for marketers when they design their own segmentation analysis. Okay, so if you look at that, they're pretty much different to consumer markets, and some of the information in here, if you select business market for assessments, you may find it more challenging, such as, how do you understand the size of the company, right? Or the characteristic of the personnel, for instance, okay, or the purchasing approach, okay? So you may find it harder for you to analyze it unless you are in that industry, that company, okay? Okay, so that's segmentation. Any questions, guys, about segmentation? All good?
Eddie?
Yep.
In relation to segmentation and including the geographic, demographic, psychographic, behavioural, etc., and then the Roy Morgan variables, are we expected to include that in the market analysis or just in the second assessment of the marketing plan?
That's actually a good question. It is more related to your assessment too.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
The reason I bring this topic now is basically tonight's topic is more related to assessment too. I'd like to give you a heads up that for your assessment too, there are things that you need to look at. Okay, the consumer behavior side of it, for your assessment one, you actually need the topic that we discussed in the previous session, and consumer behavior that will be discussed next Tuesday.
Great, thanks very much.
No worries. Okay. All right. So let's say we've done market segments. Okay. Look, the other thing I'd like to highlight about segmentation analysis is if we conduct market segments analysis thoroughly, such as through research, we may come up with 6 to 8 market segments. Right? In my experience in the Asia Pacific region, I would normally come up with when I did the thorough research, I came up with 6 to 8 market segments. okay, in any product categories, okay. Now, so that's the outcome, okay. The next thing that we need to decide is which market segment that we want to compete, okay. So that's actually the question of market targeting, okay. Now, there are 4 targeting strategies or market targeting strategies that that we can select, okay, based on 4 perspectives, okay. The first perspective is basically believe that everyone is the same. All consumers are the same, okay. This perspective actually is adopted by companies that believe that if we make the product affordable and available, customers will come to us, okay. All customers are the same. They want affordable products, okay. Therefore, if you refer to the philosophy that we discussed in a couple of sessions ago, you'll find that these guys are basically adopting the production-oriented marketing management, okay. So these guys will normally create one thing for everybody or one size that fits everybody, okay. In other words, these guys basically adopt what we call as undifferentiated marketing strategy or mass marketing, okay. They create one thing for everyone, okay. On the other side, we also have what we call as the second perspective is actually adopted by companies who believe that everybody is different, okay. Everyone is different because not everyone has the same need, and everyone has different need. For instance, has different need, has different characteristics, and so on and so forth. Okay. Therefore, the companies that adopt this strategy would normally customize their offering. Okay. As a result, they would customize their offering, okay, to the customer's needs. Okay. And these guys would normally adopt what we call as micro marketing. Okay. So individual marketing. Okay. Any examples, guys, of companies adopting these or business adopting this kind of targeting strategy?
What about companies like Vistaprint, where you can upload your images to make it a personal GIF, that type of thing?
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. Yep, that's an example. Okay, fair enough. The other companies that you also want to consider is small business, such as hairdresser, okay, or tailors, for instance, okay. When you go to a hairdresser to get your haircut or whatever, the hairdresser will talk to you what kind of style that you want. Okay, you definitely want, you know, you do not want to have the same one as your brother or your sister or your girlfriend or boyfriend. Okay, so that is customized to you. So a lot of small businesses do that. Actually, they kind of cut to size. Okay, so they customize their offering. Okay? B2B marketing, B2B marketers may also customize it. Okay, they have in general they have the same product, but the service that they attach to the product that they offer may be customized, because some customers may say, "Hey, look, I have my engineers, a group of engineers in my office. So I don't need your help to install the machine. Okay, so give me special price. Okay, so then they adjust it. Okay." Now, the third perspective is actually in between, which is basically saying that everyone is not the same, okay, but we can group them. We can group based on similarities, okay. Everyone is not the same, but we can still group them based on similarities, okay. Now, the companies that adopt this strategy basically adopt either either differentiated targeting strategy or concentrated targeting strategy, okay, or concentrated targeting strategy. All right. The guys who say that basically, I want to differentiate my offering. That means they actually create a different offering for a different market segments. Okay, so a differentiated targeting strategy is adopted by companies who create different offering, different marketing mix for different market segments, for different segments. Okay, let's say in the research, if we go back to the market segment analysis before, we reveal 6 to 8 market segments. Then they are going to look at, for segment A, which offering that they are going to create. For segment B, which marketing mix that they are going to create, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now you will understand that creating different offering means resources. Okay. Therefore, there is a tendency that the companies that adopt this strategy is basically large company. Okay, large company. Okay, small companies, small business may find it hard to adopt this strategy. Okay, now the next one is still within the third perspective of marketing strategy. The third one is actually adopted by the company that concentrate their efforts. All right, the entire marketing effort is just to design one offering. Okay, to meet one specific market segment. They will ignore the other market segments. They only want to aim at one market segment, okay, which is probably still little, right? Niche market segments. Although little, guys, I just want to give you a heads up that it has to still meet the customer's needs. It has to be substantial if we recall our effective segmentation criteria, okay? You may recall that Sensodyne, when they were just launched, and they understand they would compete with Colgate-Palmolive, they couldn't do that, okay, because of the resources. So they found that the market segment that was overlooked by the market leader was the sensitive teeth at the time. So they launched that product, and they aim at dental clinic instead of going to Woolies and Coles. Now they have been acquired by GSK, another strong pharmaceutical company, and they expand the business to somewhere else. Now, the other thing I'd like to highlight is the niche market may be expanded over if the product performs well in the market, okay, and people are happy with it, and the size of the market may increase, okay. The other example that I'd like to highlight to you is Night Owl, another retail industry, which is basically offering, doing a grocery business, trying to avoid Woolies and Coles. They have smaller stores, but they open over midnight, basically. Okay, right. So that's basically targeting strategy. So what is the outcome of targeting strategy? The outcome of targeting strategy is your target market. After you finish analyzing this, you will get a target market. All right. Since our segmentation variables, we use 4 segmentation variables. Okay. Your target market will contain 4 segmentation variables. Okay. Let's say if we go back to the previous segmentation topic. Okay, we divide the market into small market segment. Let's say we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's say we have 6 market segments. Okay, and we are using 4 segmentation variables. Each of them will contain 4 segmentation variables: geographic, demographic, psychographic, and behavioral. Okay, this is we also have the same thing. Okay, and let's say our company say we only want to aim at segment A. That means this segment A will contain these 4 segmentation variables. Okay, right. Any questions, guys, in regards to targeting strategy? Hello.
No, all good so far. Thanks.
All right. Okay. Cool. Look, if you don't have any question, can I suggest we stop here and we come back to the meeting link? Give me a couple minutes. I just get the warning from Zoom that our meeting will conclude in the next 5 minutes. Let's come back to this meeting, virtual meeting, by clicking the same link. And
same link. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Eddie.
No worries. I'll see you then to continue with our positioning topic. Okay.
Okay.